Okay, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. Welcome to Power BI for Government Community of Practice. This is our 10th session. It's great to have you here. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we do kick off. So we're running this via Teams webinar. So if you do have any questions for any of our presenters, I would ask that you just drop it in the chat. And if we need any further information, I'll call it out. But if you do have any questions, just drop it in the chat. Just another note that this session is being recorded, so you don't have to have your cameras on. You can turn them off if you don't want your cameras on, but the session will be recorded for those who can't make it. And I'll host that on my YouTube channel later, so you can watch that back. So again, please do mute your microphone and drop your questions in the chat. For those of you who haven't joined us before, the Community of Practice, this is I suppose a closed event for people within government. Where we have user stories, learning, Power BI updates, and we have all of them today. We've got two stories from Cristian and Scott. I'm going to be doing an update on, or a bit of a demo on how to connect to a weather API, bring that into your Power BI report. And then I'll also showcase the updates in the world of Power BI and what's been happening. So welcome to the group. If it's your first time. We're just here to share, collaborate, and learn from one another. Now, if you haven't already connected with me or us within the group, there is a LinkedIn group. There's a few contact details that you can contact me or the group. Let me drop it in the chat for you. So if you are, this is just a link to this here. So if you want to have a look at my website, connect to me on LinkedIn, the YouTube channel. So if you want to watch this session or any of the previous sessions, you can jump on the YouTube channel there. My mailing list, and the last one is Power BI for Government LinkedIn group. So if you're on LinkedIn, jump on that group. I post, updates. If I see job updates, I post them up there as well. A little bit of a celebration for me. At DataTale, we've hit 1,500 trainees. So what does a Power BI trainer do when he hits a milestone? He makes a Power BI report to celebrate. So there's a Power BI report here. You can play for it on my website via the link that I've given you. If your organization's here, you can search for them. You can have a look. You can click on Brimbank and see how many people I've trained at Brimbank, etc. So 15. So you can play around with that report, but that's just me having a bit of fun, but celebrating hitting 1,500 trainees. You'll see this is actually embedded Power BI report in PowerPoint. So we're still in PowerPoint. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure who's unmuted. Thanks. So you see I was in PowerPoint. Just a reminder that you can embed your Power BI reports in PowerPoint. Now, how do I get out of it is the question. If I just go down, let's see. No, now I'm stuck in the report. I have to, if I escape. Oh, there we go. Just got to maybe leave a little bit of space. I made that too big. So if I click out the outside, you can go there. So need to update this slide. But if you haven't met me or DataTale, we are Power BI trainers for government. So in terms of how do we roll out Power BI in the organization, report development, or Power BI training, please do reach out. We do have another session on the 12th of September. So if you're interested in Power BI training for government, there's a little bit of what we'll build within a day. Do reach out. I think we've got 2 attendees, so there's plenty of space. But if you'd like to learn end-to-end Power BI from scratch, just shoot me an email and I'll send you some more details. But today, we're going to jump into our session now. So we've got Cristian from Melton, Scott from Armidale, and myself. I'll be doing a presentation at the end. We do have another event which we're going to book in sometimes in November, but I don't have any speakers. So if you work in government, if you have a Power BI report you'd like to showcase, share with us, get our feedback, please just send me an email. We'd love to see your report. I've made a placeholder. Let me just grab the link for the next one. So if you want to come along to the next event, I'll drop that in the chat for you. And you can register. Oh, is that the next? Oh, that's not the next one. That's the same link. All right, I'll fix that. Same one. All right, I'll grab a link so we can put it in there for you. So no presenters for November, but if you want to present, please do let me know. We'd love to see what you're doing in the world of Power BI. So let's jump into our quarterly wrap. So we've had a couple of months since we last caught up. To be honest, there's not a lot happening in the world of Power BI, but I'll showcase a few of the updates that we now have within Power BI. First one here is the smooth leader lines. Just open up Power BI Desktop. So if you have any line charts within Power BI here, you can see I've got a line chart. We do have some new settings in the lines in here. So if I just jump in here, we have a line type setting now. So you can have a linear line, smooth, or a stepped line. And then also you have these, what we call the leader lines as well. So sometimes, it's getting a little bit cluttered and you want to pull your labels out a little bit. If you go down to your data labels here, and this is the setting here. So leader lines allow you to have these lines, so it actually points to where that data is coming from if you want to push them out a little bit. Next one we have is the layout switcher, which you'll see down the bottom left. I'll show you. So for the newest version of Power BI Desktop, we have this update here, which allows us to switch from desktop to mobile view, which is good because I always used to forget where this was. But if you haven't created a mobile layout in Power BI, you can click on that little icon there, and here you get the mobile view of the report. So just remember, if someone's in the Power BI app on their mobile phone, this is how they'll see it. If you don't set this up, they always have to look at it landscape. Good thing about this also now, if you haven't realized, is you can edit here. So sometimes you've got a lot less space. So if I wanted to change my slicer heading size, I can, drop that right down and make it a lot smaller. Historically, that would affect your actual report as well, but now this is all separated. So you can play around with the settings in your mobile view. It won't affect the report view as well. So that's good. So if you're making a mobile app version of your Power BI report. We have bubble range scaling. You'll see here, I've just got the GIF running. So whenever you're creating a bubble chart, you can change your scaling here from a data range to a magnitude, depending on the size. So you do need a size for your bubble. And the last one I'll show you is you can now edit the data model in the service. This is pretty handy. Let me just open up my browser and I'll jump into Power BI. So here's this Power BI report that I just demoed before. Now, sometimes when I was just working the service and I want to edit or change the data model, I'd have to download the Power BI report, edit the data model, and then republish. But now we have, when we're in edit mode in the service, you do have open data model up in here. So that's good because now even if you just wanted to have a look at the data model, you can do that all via the service. You don't have to download the file as a PBIX and open it up in Power BI Desktop. So you can see my pretty basic data model here, and I can edit it in the Power BI service. Save that. So I can edit it, change relationships, or view the relationships within here. So that's my 4 updates for that month, or actually the last 2 months. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Cristian, and he's got a report in Power BI. He's leveraged a lot of tools here, ADF, Databricks, Power Automate, and Excel. And so he's done a little bit of work here in the back end to build out his Power BI report. So Cristian, what I'll do is I'll let you take over the screen, and it's all over to you.
Thanks, Warren. Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Yeah. Can you see the presentation?
Yep, looks good.
Well, afternoon, everyone. I'm Cristian Jara. I work at Melton City Council, and today I'm going to present on a work we did last year, by the end of last year, beginning this 2023, where we use Power Automate, Excel scripts, a little bit of ADF and Databricks for a Power BI dashboard for the infrastructure plan or capital works planning. and as well for visualization in a web map application. Continue. So basically our Power BI dashboard was divided into 3 main visualizations. One of them was the first year plan for 23-24 capital program. I have moved the numbers, so these numbers are not the real budget for 23-24 or for the 4-year plan or 10-year plan for Melton. So the design of the dashboard, we have first of all a 1-year plan for the 23-24, a 4-year plan that is the medium-term outlook for the municipality, and then the long-term outlook that it would be the 10-year infrastructure plan. And depending on the time frame, we have different visualizations. So, for example, in here we have a budget through time for the 10 years. Same with the 4-year plan. And the colors are basically the budget categories for each year. And then, so here is a demonstration of the at least of the first year plan. So in here we have a map created with a Mapbox plugin in Power BI. You can zoom in, click on a project. You have a donut chart where you can see all the budget categories and the status of the project in that particular year. So you can filter by different filters: project category, project type, the complexity of the project, by project sponsor. And we have at the bottom here a button to email a report that is made with Power Automate, and it will automatically send an email to the user that clicked that button. So in order to do that, to do this automation to email the report, because some of our managers wanted the report in an Excel file, sorry. So really summarizing a table. So in order to do that from the Power BI dashboard, because you could filter in the Power BI dashboard, and then you could send an email with the filter report only with the projects that they want to see. So in order to do that, we created 4 flows, one for each individual time frame, one for 1 year, one for the 23-24 program, one for 4-year program, and one for the 10-year program. So let's dive into the detail of this one. Oops, sorry. A second. Just play. So in this automation, so it is obviously triggered by the Power BI button click, and whenever the button is clicked, it searches for the user that clicked that button in order to get the email of the user, so we can send the email later down in the flow. After that, we compose the data from Power BI, and then we filter. Well, these are only like data transformations that we do within Power Automate in order to get the data in the right format we need it for the Excel file. So we have 3 steps here. For example, we have the filtering steps and the copy file step. So in order to get this report into an Excel file, what we needed to do is create a template file that you're going to see a little bit later. And we can use this Excel template to run a script to copy all the information coming from Power BI into this template, and then send that copy of the template through Outlook. Sorry. So as you can see there, the composed data, then the filters, depending on whatever transformation we needed at that time. And then I created these scopes into Power Automate because it was like since the complexity of the flow was increased, so it was not possible to see in a single page the whole flow. That's why I created the scopes in order to visualize better the scope, the flow, sorry. So in this scope are more data transformations, more filtering, depending on what were the needs of that project in particular. Sorry. And then after that, after the data was transformed and we have copied the template, we then run an Excel script with all the information, with where the inputs are, all the data coming from those filters, from those data transformation. So we do that, and the data is copied automatically in this Excel file, and then we get the Excel file. Obviously, that Excel file is saved in a SharePoint folder. This wouldn't be possible, or at least at the best of my knowledge, it wouldn't be possible if you have it locally. So it has to be online. And then after we get that, we get the information from the user that we got at the beginning after the button click trigger, and then we send an email for containing that particular Excel script. So in terms of Excel, we needed to create 3 different templates, one for 23-24 program, one for the 4-year program, as you can see here, and one for the 10-year program. So with those templates, we just copy those templates and apply the Power Automate flow to populate them and send them through Outlook. So the Excel scripts use a coding language called TypeScript that is really similar to JavaScript. That is only the difference is that is strongly typed. So you need to define the type of the data that you are entering. So that's the main difference between TypeScript and JavaScript. So these scripts can be done only in Excel Online. You cannot have Excel scripts within Excel Desktop. So it has to be worked through an Excel Online in a SharePoint list or in a OneDrive. So that is basically all the information that we needed. We got the information from Power BI transformed by the Power Automate flow, and then we basically copy all the data into the different cells for this particular report. So in terms of the Azure Data Factory integration, it was really simple in terms of the process that we implemented. It was only from Fulcrum through Azure Data Factory pipelines we got the data into a data lake, and then through the Azure Data Factory pipelines as well, we got the information into Databricks to transform it with Python. And then we use that data through data flows into Power BI and as well to a web map application. Because the problem that we encounter is that if we only use Fulcrum, we will have sensible information that we'll be sharing with the web map application. So we needed a middleman in order to transform the data before going to the web map application. So that's why we decided to use ADF. And Databricks in order to transform the data. So connecting the web map application directly to the data lake that is already transformed and filtered. And then obviously this data comes to Power BI and to the website as well. So and obviously this part of the ADF pipelines is only a copy process. So it's not, that's why I didn't put any pictures of it, because it's just a copy process from Fulcrum to the data lake, or from the data lake to Databricks, and from Databricks to data lake. But the part of where we transform the data is in Databricks. So we use the Databricks from the Azure Data Factory as well to get the information from Fulcrum SharePoint and push the information to Mapbox as well. For the budget website. And for example, The final product of this project was the dashboard itself, the infrastructure plan dashboard for the capital program, and the budget website as well. But the budget website was only limited to 23-24 program. So this is the budget website. So let me open this. And this was done with the same data. So it is to show our community our commitment in 23-24 budget information. So this is nothing to do with Power BI, but we use it to leverage our communication with our stakeholders. Let's go back to the presentation. Yep, and yep, that's it from me. Thank you, Warren. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. I'm going to open up to any questions. So my first question, Christian, is, do you find, I suppose, with so many steps, was there any kind of maintenance issues in terms of maintaining it or changes, or once you've built it, have you been able to just leave it?
Yeah. So we spent a bit of time. First, the hardest part is to come up with an ultimate solution for the database structure. So because if the database structure changes, that has to change in all of the steps, right? So in order to avoid those problems, even for example, what I did within Power Query when to build the dashboard is to create some some parameters, so that are custom functions for us that, for example, get the current financial year depending on the date on the date of today, for example, right? Gets the financial year to calculate everything, right? And for example, all of our budget columns within our data structure follow a single pattern. For example, council rates 23-24, grants 25-26, and so on and so forth. And if we follow that pattern, so we can add infinite amount of columns, right? But in Power BI, what I did is get the budget columns dynamically following this pattern. So if, for example, if a column disappears, or if someone erase a column, or we erase, for example, last year columns, right, and we add one more row, one more set of columns at the end, we won't have the problem that we usually have with Power Query and Power BI, that if a column disappears, one of the steps is hard type the name of the column. So instead of doing that, what I did is get dynamically the budget columns, because we had to do some steps for pivot and changing the data type as well. So instead of hard typing the names of the columns, that is what usually happens when you just do it. Let Power Query do it automatically, right? In the first step, so it is source and then change type, and in the change type, all the columns are hard typed. So instead of doing that, what I did is just get the budget columns out dynamically. So every time it changes in the data source, it changes as well in Power Query, and we avoid those errors.
Yeah, excellent. If anyone else got questions, feel free to put in the chat, or you can raise your hand. As a question from Eden, do you think there will be any shortcuts to use less services for the current pipeline? He says he loves the functionality, but he's just talking about the practicality of the pipeline being usable by other teams.
Yeah, definitely. I think the part of Azure Data Factory can be skipped if you are not going to use a web map application, because the Power BI dashboard is internal, right? So no one will have access outside your organization to this information unless this dashboard is shared publicly. So in that case, you can skip the ADF and the Databricks step. But in terms of sending the report, I think there is a tool now called I don't know. You can send a report through Power BI as well. I don't know the name of the tool. You might be able to help me here, Warren.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. External tool, you mean, or?
Yeah, it's a reporting tool that you can make even a PDF with some of the information. Yeah, but paginated reports, exactly.
Paginated reports. Okay.
Yeah, but at that point when I was working for this project, for some reason we didn't have access to paginated reports. So that's why we came up with that solution. But I don't know if paginated reports are flexible enough to generate a report with the exact requirements that the stakeholders want. But
yeah, not for what you're doing, no.
Yeah, so that's why if some of your users are gonna require Excel reports to be printed, for example, for this project, then Excel scripts is the way to go for that.
Yeah, interesting. Another question from Bob. Did you need any dev tool or set up a dev environment?
A dev tool for the Excel scripts, you don't need that. You don't need a dev tool or a dev environment. For the ADF, you definitely need access to the Azure Data Factory. And same with Databricks. So for Databricks, you will need a dedicated server in the cloud. That in our case, it's only used whenever the data is updated. That is once a day or once a week. I don't remember right now.
Okay, excellent. Well, actually, I don't know if anyone saw that Python's now been released in Excel, so maybe that might be another way to do things. Python's in Excel now, so yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Cristian. Really appreciate your presentation. I'm hand over to Scott now. Thank you, Cristian. Scott, if you want to take over the screen for me, and please do introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thanks, Warren. I'm leading the operational excellence team here at the City of Armidale. I used to be based in Victoria, but now over here. Got a smallish team that we've recently started, really establishing ourselves both in terms of what we do from a reporting and dashboarding perspective, but also building up our data architecture as well, because we're really starting from scratch. It's always thought when I first started at Victoria how slow local government was to really adapt to data and analytics. WA is probably 2 to 3 years behind Victoria again. So that's a little bit of a background of me and what's happening over here. The couple of things that I'll speak to today, I've got a couple of dashboards, one around crash stats, the other one around crime. If we do have any other people online from WA, some of these dashboards or the processes therein to create them could be very transferable to you. So the first one I'll take you through is crash stats. What you can see on the screen now is, I suppose, the place that I'm getting that data from. So it's hosted on the WA Open Data Portal. Just a quick download. It gets updated typically once per year. So that update has already happened. So we've got data from 2018 through to 2022. Very easy to use data set. You can see it in here. Look, I've created a few columns and measures and things like that, but for the most part, it's just bring it in and use. So no transformations required at all. One of the things that, as you can see, this is not useful. So we'll change that to Armidale. You want the West Australia version. And I've just got a point map for all the different accidents and crash stats that have happened there. As you can see here, these numbers above give us those stats, but they are for all of WA, and that only changes once the selection has occurred. I have filtered that down for this particular year here. Now, in terms of use cases, one thing that that happens quite a lot for our council and probably for others in WA and potentially in other states too, we have access to something known as black spot funding, and we need to build a business case effectively to access those grants, and this is a way for us to improve the way we do our grant applications. So I'll do one example here of highlighting a road of interest to City of Armidale, and that's known as 8th Road. Create a polygon around the road itself. And we can see that we've had 18 accidents just on that road in 1 year, and some of the other stats associated with those there too. That has also filtered down our list of accidents as well, so they can traffic team can export that and use it as they need to. Now, as mentioned, this dashboard is valid for all of WA, and it's open data, and I've made no real changes to it. So if anyone wants this for their own and wants to improve upon it, go ahead and do so. I'll happily email it across. So more a function of the power of the data set and what we can do with it. The next example I'll go through is crime stats. Now, the way this best works in WA is that the WA police share granulated crime stat information with the Western Australian Local Government Authority. They then transfer that across to each council through a monthly file, and that's what we're seeing here in terms of that email. Now that then looks like this and this. So we've got some very basic columns, not necessarily a lot here, but we've got month. This is always going to be Armidale for us. This is actually the suburb because Armidale is a city, a suburb in there. You can see the other suburbs once we start scrolling. Some level of information around the crimes. It does have street name and type, which is something that I'm not using in my dashboard, and the number of offences that occurred. Now, obviously, we're effectively receiving one email per month in terms of what that looks like. There's many ways to do this. I'm not going to speak to ways to do it, but I have created a compiled list of many months to turn that into one data source, which is then getting fed into the dashboard. Now, from a dashboarding perspective, one of the key elements in terms of the way I wanted to visualize this was using a field map or a choropleth. I'm using the map box feature here. What I have done is, I've got my own tile set set up in Mapbox. One of the tile sets that I have created is using WA suburbs from the census, so that's created in there. Anyone who's worked with these kind of things, you sometimes need to create some transformations, and I'll highlight that one here with respect to the suburbs. So it won't just naturally pick up these locality names straight into the map. So I do have effectively a created table here, and it picks up on, can't recall if it's, I think it is this code here, to know which suburbs are which based on, I suppose, ABS codes. And these are the names that they use instead, but these are the names that are used in the crime stat. So just a little translation table in terms of what that looks like. And going back to here, probably the other feature that I was keen to bring in, and I'll highlight this right now. So if we look at City of Armidale, and I'll speak a little bit towards geography and how it's made up. Armidale, the suburb within the greater city, is effectively the larger hub where most of the shopping and entertainment precinct might be, and you can see that there's a population of 13,000 here, but that doesn't necessarily speak to the fact that actually our most densely or highest population suburb is actually known as Piara Waters, where a lot of recent development has occurred, and there's every chance other suburbs will outgrow Armidale in time, but anyone who's worked with crime stats knows that it's not necessarily where people live, it's where they go in terms of where their crimes occur. So you'll see that again and again. So regardless of, we can say that stealing's the highest offence, and there's a large increase in terms of what that looks like year on year, and that's saying that here too. But every time we click on one of these, it's not necessarily changing that choropleth too much in terms of which suburbs are the highest offenders. Just some really minor changes in terms of what it's like, but it's usually Armidale as the main one. But something that I did want to normalise for was the population size, because there can be some really drastic changes in population on a suburb by suburb basis, and we shouldn't necessarily penalise is not necessarily the right word, but penalise certain suburbs just because they've got more people in them and will naturally have higher crime rates in there. So something we can do instead, I've brought in one of the census data sets. It's only being used for one field, which is that total population one down the bottom, and created a separate measure to get crimes per population, and then used a parameter to highlight those two fields, and I've got that here, but I'm only applying that parameter to this area here. Now, those who don't know Armidale, about half of our footprint to the east is all in national parklands. So this suburb of, it's actually Leslie. It's not populated there, but it's Leslie. That's actually got a population of 0. And we can see here in Ashton, in the hills and the national park areas, a population of 3. So a lot of area, not any people. So you can start seeing some of these middle anomalies in terms of what seems like a high crime rate per population. But if we start drilling into different crime types, you can see it starts taking a much different view than what it did previously. We've also got here the ability to drill down into our crime types as well. If we wanted to look at something a little bit smaller. So we saw that it really does change once we start clicking into some things. That might be about it. I think in terms of terms of replication, I would say there is something here. I can't actually share this with anyone else, but I suppose the process of creating this for anyone else in WA could easily be replicated, as they would be getting the same files on a month-by-month basis, and not too hard to recreate. So that's about all I really want to share with everyone there, Warren.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Scott. I love that both presenters are using Mapbox, so that's my personal favorite, so that's good. If there's any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. I suppose not a question, it's a comment from Chrissy about Landgate. So just a reference to Landgate for administration boundaries provided by WA. So that's a point where you can download the boundaries from there. Any other questions for Scott? Does Mapbox require a license? So Mapbox does require a credit card, but you only get charged by usage. So I think it's 10,000 views a month. So I don't think you'd get charged unless a lot of people are using. Yeah. So I think you should be right. All right, excellent. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. I'll share my screen again. Where are we? Move over here. Share the screen. All right. So sorry, there's a few questions. I'll get back to those questions, but what I want to do is jump into this demo. We're going to connect to, it's not technically the BOM API, but it is a weather API, and we're going to build out this report. Now, before I do that, let me, I've made a kind of user guide for you, so I'll grab that. If you would like to play along, it might be a little bit difficult if you don't have an API key, but I'll drop that in the chat for you. So maybe if you just want to watch today and then in your own time, you'll just need to download an API key and create an account. It's all free. So I will be using, let's load this up. So I've built this user guide for you. So everything I'm going to do here, it's all there for you as well. And actually the other thing I wanted to grab for you was just the next event. So if you did want to attend our event in November, you do have to register every time, unfortunately. So I've dropped that link in there for you as well. And you can register here where you have registered for this event. So again, if you want to present, please do let me know, because we don't have any presenters for November. So it's all in there for you. So I'll be following along with this. Going to open up, actually, I'll just use my demo file. I'll open up my demo file here. And the first thing you're going to need to do is go to visualcrossing.com.au. So this is a website, and it's not just for me, I'm in Victoria, so all of Australia, international as well. It has an API for all the weather, and you can get for free 14 days of weather. So I've created an account here. If you have time, you can do it, or in your own time. But essentially, if I show you what the, actually, this is what the account looks like. And I need just this API key. So that's all I need. So I've grabbed that from there. I'm going to jump back into Power BI, jump into Power Query. And we've talked about parameters today. So let's build a parameter. So I'm going to create a parameter. So over in the right here, I'm going to right click and say new parameter. So parameters are useful whenever you want to reference something within your code. And what we want to reference is that API key. So if I go back to the API key and I will copy that, go back in here, and this is going to be the value of my parameter. And we're going to call this weather API key, and I'll just copy that from my notes and put it in here. So weather API key, and it's just the key there, and I click on OK, and I'll have a parameter in here. Now, the next thing we want to do is connect to the API. Now, the API uses well, it's a JSON, and then we have to do some transformations in Power Query. Now, to save time, there's nothing too difficult about that. But what I've done is in your handout, you'll see the code's already there for you in mscript. So essentially, it's just pulling the data out from the JSON into a table and then expanding out the days. So if you want to use that code there, so have a look there. So I'm just copy and pasting this. Put it over there. We can right click in here and create a new query, which will be just a blank query. So I've already got the code. I just want to drop it into here. So I can just click on the blank query. Now you can't edit it in here, but you will see up the top. So I right clicked here, I said new query, and then I can go to my advanced editor to edit the code of the query. So if we jump into the advanced editor, and you can see there's nothing there at the moment, but if you delete all of that, you can paste that code in here. So I'll just zoom in to show you the code. So you can see there's the URL of the API, and then here is my key, which so that points to the parameter, and you can see it's of type JSON. And then you see my transformations here. All I'm doing is converting it to a table and then expanding out the days and deleting columns and changing types. So there's not a lot of transformations there. So I've just copied and pasted that, and you can grab that code as well. Now, once we've done that, we can get the data. So when I registered on that website, I put that I wanted Melbourne, Victoria data. So you can see that I have Melbourne data. I have my temperature, the min, the max. This one is going to be important later. We've got an icon, so days icon. So that's the weather icon, the conditions, and we also have a description as well. So there's a lot of information here. Now, I won't call this query one. I'm going to call this table weather. So I'll just copy that from over here. Paste that there. Okay, so that's all done. So in Power Query, we've done two things. We've created a parameter, which is weather API key, which just has our ID. And then we've connected to the actual API, and it's given us 14 days or 15 days of data. Done some transformations just to make that presentable, and it's called table_weather. So I'll close and apply. And jump onto a blank page. Okay, so the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to get the icons for the weather into our Power BI report as well. Jump back into my browser to show you this one here. What it looks like. So there is a GitHub from Weather Crossing, and you can see it has all the different icon names and an SVG there that we can call. So I'll show you clear day here because we don't have a lot of these in Melbourne. So let's have a look. It does look like that. And so what we want is this icon in our Power BI report. So if this one comes up, we can have a nice icon there. So what we need is this URL here. Oops, sorry, jump in there again. So what we're going to take is this URL. Because here we have clearday.svg, and we have that in our table under icon. And so we'll remove that, and we can refer to our data to the column clear, well, the icon column. So if I jump back into here, open up table weather, and we're going to build a new column. So I'll right click in here and say, let's build a new column. And I've already pre-built this one earlier, so I'm just going to copy and paste. You'll see that in point 4, and I'll paste that in here. So just to explain what's happening here, we have image icon, the name of my column, and it's just a path. I've got the and sign to end the string and and sign for the SVG at the end. And then I'm saying from table weather table, get days.icon. Now, the last step that you will need to do to get this to work is you need to change it from uncategorized to make sure it's an image URL. So it will take that URL, obviously jump on the internet, look for that string and return that. So let's have a look and see if that's working. So I'll just pull in image icon in here. It looks like I didn't change it, so I'll go back to uncategorized, change to image URL. And you can see here I've got the icons in a table. So that's good. That's all managed by this website in their GitHub, and we're just pointing to that GitHub, and we've got all those icons. So obviously there's more than this, and it'll update depending on our data, because if we have a look at the conditions here, up a bit, so if there's a clear, and you can see it is just pointing to that URL. All right, so that's our second step. We've got the image into the table. I'll delete that. And now we're just going to format it nicely so we can use it in our Power BI report. So I'm going to create a matrix visual. I'm going to use a matrix visual. It's this one here. And I'm just going to add some columns and some values. So I'll give that a bit more width. And so my columns, I'm going to take date, not a hierarchy date. I just want date by itself. So I'll put that in there. Next one I'm going to grab is conditions, put that in the column, and my image icon. And in my values, I'm going to get the temp and the temp max. So temp max. Just going to rename these. So I'm just going to call that date. Condition. Icon doesn't really need a name, so I'm just going to space so that you can't see that. And then temp and max. Now, another step that we're going to need to do is in the options for the matrix. So if we click on the format visual here, what we want to do is make sure that, where is it? There's a setting to make everything, they'll see it as rows. Where are we? In here. So in the value setting, it says switch values to rows. So if I turn that on, you can see that'll format it nicely. So here I have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So under your settings, format visual, values, turn on this option. So instead of, you'll see here I have them side by side, I want this one underneath as a row. So that's that setting there. Jump into my filter. So I just want the next 7 days, let's say. So I'll jump into my filters pane. I'll go to the date filter, and we can jump in here, the relative date, and I can say, show me is in the next 7 days, including today, and apply that filter. So let's reduce that. Definitely don't want a total. So I'll jump into my settings and turn off my totals as well. Again, sorry if I'm moving a little bit fast, but I have documented all for you step by step. So you can, all these steps are there for you. So that's done there. And now I just need to step down the hierarchy. So at the moment I'm at date. So if I haven't used a hierarchy before, these are our 4 hierarchies. So the up, toggle it on so I can click on something, go down a hierarchy, including the one above. That's the one I want to use here. So I want to keep all my data like that. So probably should have just 1 decimal on here as well. So to change our temp and temp max, I don't tick them, but I select days.temp. Head up the top here, and I'm going to change it to 1 decimal. Don't know if that did that. 1 decimal, hit enter. And temp min, 1 decimal, hit enter. No, max is what I'm after. Temp, sorry, that one. Okay, so now I can add this to any other Power BI report that I want. Obviously, all you need is that API key and just to register at the website. This will update. So Obviously, I set that up in the Power BI service. I can refresh it overnight, and tomorrow it'll be starting at Wednesday. So you can see here at Melbourne, we do actually have a good day on Sunday, so that's good. A bit of clear weather, but that's a nice way that you can use icons. You connect into an API, you bring in all that data in, a few transformations, but I've done all the steps for you in the document, so hopefully you have a bit of fun with that. If you do get it to work, I'd love to see you, share it on LinkedIn, tag me. I'd love to see if you're able to get this work for yourself, and drop it in one of your other Power BI reports. I don't know, if we could have historical, we could add it to Scott's crime stats. Do we have more crime on a sunny day or a rainy day? So you can add it in, something like that. Or if you've got a depot and they want to see what the weather is, how their KPIs are, you can add that into the Power BI report as well. Were there any questions? If there are any, feel free to drop it into the chat. But otherwise, that does bring us to the end of the session. I see there are some questions I haven't answered at the end, so I will go back up and have a look through. Just a reminder, if you want this document, it is in the chat for you. This session will be recorded, so I'll put it on YouTube so you can watch all this again. You can have the document with you. You can step by step go through it as well. If you do want to register for November session, I'll drop that link in the chat for you again. So please do that. Love to see you in November. If there are any other questions, just stick on the line and I can help you out if you're having a go trying to build it for yourself. But otherwise, great to see you all again. And hopefully I will see you at the next meetup in November. Or if you like that type of training, get in touch. We do Power BI for government, where we do actually do crash stats and census and all that type of stuff, and you can build out your own Power BI report. So thanks again, everyone. Reach out if you do need support in the world of Power BI, but thanks for coming along. I'll stick on the line and I'll answer anyone else's questions, but we'll wrap it up with 2 minutes to spare. So thanks, everyone. I'll see you next time.